Happy New Year, welcome to 2022 and the all-new Skoda Kodiaq. It's all new, but it's revised. And it's been a long time coming. This revision of the car was announced kind of April 2021, and the chip shortage means this car landed Christmas week and I was the first person to get my hands on it, so there was zero delivery mileage on it. So it's been great to get a first look at the car. Check out the little subtle changes, such as the grille that's slightly different, the bonnet that is ever so slightly different. The Sportline 20-inch alloys are still here, still looking absolutely gorgeous. A little bit of black trim going on down here on the Sportline model also. You now got black roof rails. Something that I know is going to really shock so many of you is the ice scraper is now clear, not green. You can now get matrix headlights. They're not standard, but they are optional now on the car. There's a slightly different rear diffuser going on down here. Breaks up a bit of kind of trim with chrome going on, bit of black plastic, a bit more plastic here, and your Kodiaq and your Skoda lettering in black, as is kind of what's going on these days. There's also a slightly bigger boot spoiler. So there's 3 petrol engines, although we're not getting the petrol RS version of the car. There's 2 diesels, the 150 brake horsepower and the almost 200 brake horsepower. You can get both of them with 4-wheel drive, and all diesel engines come with a 7-speed DSG gearbox. And this version, they've done some trickery with AdBlue and is 80% down on CO2 and NOx emissions for these new revised diesel engines that are across all the Volkswagen range. In here is where you can actually keep your parcel shelf. Well done, Skoda, you're one of the few that managed to do it. 270 litres boot space if you have all the seats up. It's still actually alright, like you get a bit of shopping in there. Then it's an 835 litre boot, and it's over 2,000 litres if you drop all the seats and you've all the space. And there's shopping hooks still, you have 12 volts. You have lights, you can drop the seats from handles here. So everything is as you would expect from Skoda. Simply clever, simply adjustable in every which way you'd like to do that. They really have kind of thought of everybody, including back seat passengers back here. There's still an awful lot of room for your extra row seats and their legs. Now, though the Kodiaq is a Skoda and it starts from €38,000, this car here is €56,000. What? Little plastic strips still come out on the edges of these doors to protect, well, the outside of your paint from your kids knocking them off walls and stuff like that. Legroom, if you have this middle bench reasonably far adjusted back, very, very generous. You're never going to complain about it at all. But yes, they are adjustable. So if you want to give your extra row of passengers a bit more breathing space for their kneecaps, you can do this individually, and you can drop this center seat independently of the others. There's a bit more interior stitching now. Ambient lighting is a little bit nicer. Blinds are still included if you have the pack that adds them. Work very well, actually. That optional glass roof floods in the light as always, and yes, it does open as well to let in air for passengers. There's now additional safety systems like Crew Protect Assist. The car will have a sensor on the back and knows if it's about to be impacted from the rear. What it does inside, if it gets ready to deploy interior airbags and stuff a bit sooner, not quite sure, but it's an optional extra and it sounds like you care. Let the people back here. Higher spec models will also get independent climate control and a 12-volt charger, although I'm struggling to see anything that can be charged with the USB back here. Oh, and the child locks, you can independently open and close them from the driver's control panel on the door. Very handy. The nipping and tucking continues up here with a slightly different steering wheel. It's quite like the new Octavia, except there is actually a third spoke still going on. Your DSG gearbox. It's actually nice to have a lever, do you know that? There's still all the Simply Clever stuff, like a USB-C port for your dash cam, yeah? 2 more down here for charging your devices. Shortcut buttons everywhere. If you like climate control and your heated seats to be at the touch of a button, you can do that, and the same with the heated steering wheel. The armrest is still adjustable, I wouldn't expect anything less. And the little nibs that are there to help you open a bottle of something as you're on the move safely are also still there. So that's all good stuff. You also get loads of control in your displays, and if you spec for a couple of £100 extra, you get more colour. You can go to a 10-inch screen as opposed to an 8-inch screen, That's also good. What's not so good is you hit the nav button and it says this function is unavailable. I'm sorry? It's a €56,000 car. You can rectify that by controlling your Apple CarPlay or Android from your phone wirelessly, and then you have nav. But it's kind of not the point. There's also no blind spot. And again, at this price point, I'm just not sure. But you do get a bin now in the Kodiaq down here to keep all your sweet wrappers and rubbish and toll receipts and stuff that you swear you'll keep, but you never do. It also feels like the dash is just a little bit more refined again. Again, nothing wrong with the last version of the Kodiaq, but it's just ever so more nicely wrapped. I'm not sure if it is full on leather, but it feels good. It's very soft at the touch. I think most people get into this car, have a look at the surroundings, the textures, the lights, the colours, the ambient lighting, the seats, and just kind of go, wow, I didn't know Skoda were making cars like this. Have been for quite a while. Sportline models get the pedals covered in nice trim. Your radar guided cruise control is down here, and there's plenty of adjustment for taller, shorter passengers. Passengers like to sit on top of an airbag, and passengers that just like to drive normally. And if you get the Sportline seats, you can have electrically adjustable ones with lumbar support also, controllable by the side of the seat. There's barely 300 kilometers in this car, so it's early enough doors. It's doing 7.5 litres per 100 kilometers on kind of short enough urban journeys. You're going to see that drop to easily 5 something if you go on longer motorway treks and stuff like that. UK MPG figure. I promise you in 2022 I'll do more of this for people watching the UK. There's the figure down below. The 7-speed gearbox, I've no complaints with it. It's smooth. You don't feel the gear changes very, very rarely anyway. Engine in the diesel, a little bit rattly, only really at idle, only when it's cold. When it's on the move, you kind of forget. I remember when I first picked this up before Christmas, I was like, is this the petrol or is it like, you really, whatever they've managed to do with diesel engines, not to mention how far less polluting they are. Diesel's getting, a bad rep, understandably for many reasons and scandals, and EVs now being just a far greener option in many people's heads. There's a lot to be said for a clean diesel that will do 800 kilometers though. Even at total idle now, it's quite hard to be critical. Maybe it's a good bit of insulation going on, but it works. The gear changes, I don't know if you can hear it there, just so smooth. There's no sort of shudder through the car as it changes gear. Body roll, I mean, it's not a car that's going to be made for handling country roads, but for the size of the car, there's very little body roll. It handles reasonably well. Now, if you've a Kodiaq full of 7 people, I'll get back to you on that. And it is hard to know with this size of car, if you don't have enough kids to justify using all the seats all the time. I've no doubt there are people that say, well, but sometimes I'm bringing their friends to gymnastics or there's a kids party and it just makes life easier. It is that case. If you're buying a Kodiaq, I would generally say don't go for a 5-seater over a 7, because chances are when you do come to sell it, everyone will want a 7-seater version. The Kodiaq was one of the first cars I reviewed on the channel when I started it back in 2018, and I really remember probably being not green to the whole thing, but just being really impressed by the Kodiaq. I was my first time in one, first time to drive one. Yes, it was a lovely spec Sportline as this one is, but I just got into it and said, if you took the badges off this thing, it really would stand up to many other cars. And all these years on, I still think that is the case. Although, like a lot of our waistlines around Christmas time, the price of the Kodiaq has expanded ever so slightly. And there is another model from Skoda, very similar in size, just doesn't have an extra 2 seats in the back, that I need to bring up in the conclusion. So to recap, the Kodiaq, in my opinion, is just as good as it ever was. It's been a big success for Skoda. Enyaq is obviously at 56 grand for this car. A very much top of the range Enyaq option is there waiting for you if you want to go electric. This diesel version will do 700-800 kilometers out of one tank though, which is quite a bit more. Just looking at the optional extras. So what has the test car got as standard? Panoramic roof on the Sportline standard, heated sports steering wheel, ambient lighting, the exterior styling pack, the Matrix LED headlights, and the heated front seats in black suedia. All that said, with the optional extras of €3,500, what are they? Well, €1,200 for the alloys, virtual cockpit, it was €581, although I think that's actually quite worth it. Race blue is the colour, in case you're wondering. Race blue, €249. That's not bad either. The Sportline pack itself is just over €1,000, and the family pack that gets you things like the adjustable blinds, just over €400. There's no doubt this is gorgeous. The test cars usually are. €38,000 for the entry model, that's still pretty good. Is it still a great 7-seater, despite the car now being 5 years old? I really think it is, but you're going to pay for it. Thanks very much for watching. And again, Happy New Year.